All right, we're back. Are you ready? Let's go. We are on the constitutional questions. We're going to do Article 4 today. Okay? And that question is, must all states' judicial actions be recognized by all other states in the national government? And if you have a copy of the Constitution with you, you can see that this is Section 1 and Section 2 of Article 4. And the answer is really simple. The answer is yes. The judicial actions taken in a state must be recognized by other states. Let's just do the most obvious one. Okay, marriage. My wife and I got married in Georgia. We moved to Texas. We didn't have to get married again. Texas said, "You're married. Got married in Georgia. That's good enough for us." This is called the Full Faith and Credit Act. Okay, and it's part of the articles. It's part of the articles of the Constitution. Okay, so think about it another way. You commit a crime in Georgia. You move to Tennessee. Guess what? Tennessee can arrest you and send you back to Georgia on the basis of the crime that you committed. Okay, it's pretty simple. Okay, we recognize these acts. Now, does it take place in all cases? No. And this is a controversial one. Some states have marriage laws that allow someone, I think as young as 14, maybe even younger, to get married. And if they move to another state, does that state have to recognize that marriage? The answer is no, that state does not have to. Okay, that state can very specifically say, we're not going to respect your laws in this kind of case. Okay, so in other words, the full faith and credit applies most of the time, but there always are exceptions. Okay, I have a Texas driver's license. I go to Oklahoma. Can I use it? Yes, because they respect what Texas does. Okay, but there's always just every now and then these bizarre little things like early marriages, that kind of thing, which can cause trouble for states. Okay, the next question. Article 4, how do we create new states? It's pretty simple. Okay, you have a territory. That territory says, hey, we want to be a state. What happens? They go to Congress and they say, can we be a state? Okay, Congress has to approve it to happen. Has this happened? You better believe it. How did Texas become a state? Anything beyond the original 13 states have gone through this process. But let's just look at what's going on today. Puerto Rico, 3 times in the last 20 years, has asked permission to become a state. And Congress has said, hey, you can become a state if you meet the following conditions. And those conditions basically were that the people of Puerto Rico have to want it. And so 3 times Puerto Rico has voted on it, and each time it's only gotten a bare minimum of votes. So it got like 51%. And the Senate and the Congress at the time said that's not enough. If you're going to become a state, you got to have a lot of people who want it, not just a bare minimum. So they just haven't let them. So the simple answer, how do we get new states? Basically, the House and the Senate have to do it. They agree to it, they get it done. Okay? In my lifetime, 2 states have been created, Alaska and Hawaii. Of course, I was too young to remember them. Since then, Puerto Rico's tried, has failed. It's possible some of the other territories that the United States has at some point might try to become states as well. Okay, next question. Can a state leave the United States? And the answer to that is no. A state cannot leave the United States. In the end, that's what the Civil War was about. Abraham Lincoln said, we're united. You can't leave, so don't. And we'll fight you if you do. Okay? So you can't leave once you're in. Just the way it is, you're sort of stuck here. Okay? So there was a movement a couple years ago to get California to leave, and they started a petition process, but it fell apart, and the leader of the movement out in California actually left the United States and moved to Russia. He's now living in Moscow, last I heard. So, sort of weird. Okay, by the way, there's some who say that the Texas Constitution allows Texas to leave the United States. The answer is no, it doesn't. Under the Texas Constitution, Texas can divide into 5 different states. Abilene would be part of the Panhandle. It could be the Panhandle state, I guess. But can't leave. Okay, once you're in, you're in. And the next question, last question for Article 4. What form of government must each state have? And this is easy. Okay, it's a Republican form of government. Remember when I was talking about democracy? And I said there's 2 kinds, direct and indirect. Indirect democracy is also Republican or representative form of government. And I said the Constitution dictates that each state have Republican form of government, a representative form of government. And that's what we have. Each state has their own legislature. They elect their own governor. And it's the legislature and the governor in each of the 50 states that does all the lawmaking at the state level. Okay? All right. Let's do Article 5 of the Constitution now. How do we amend the Constitution? In other words, the Constitution can be changed 27 times. It's been changed, the Bill of Rights, first 10, and then subsequently 17 more. So how does it happen? Well, it's important to know 2 steps. Step number 1 is a proposal, and step number 2 is ratification. Okay, so in a proposal, very simple. States themselves or Congress can propose an amendment. Okay, so Congress can pass, both houses can pass a proposed amendment. Okay, that's a proposal stage. And then it would go out to the states for ratification. Or the states can get together, have a conference or a convention, and in that they can propose constitutional changes. They can propose amendments. So step number one, let's only put one finger up. Step number 1 is just the proposal stage. Step number 2 is ratification. Once the amendment has been proposed, then it goes to the states, and 3/4 of the states must approve any amendment. They must ratify it. Okay? How many states did it take to propose an amendment? Well, turns out it takes 2/3. Okay? To ratify, it takes 3/4. So, proposal, step number 1, Congress can do it, or the states themselves can do it, and it takes 2/3 of the states to do that. Step number 2 is the ratification, where the amendment goes to the states, and the states all say, do we want to ratify this or not? Do we want this part of the Constitution? And it's their choice, and in the end, they can do it if they want to, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. 27 times they've done it. Okay, but it takes 3/4 of the states to do that. All right, so that concludes Article 5. It's a pretty simple article. How do you make changes to the Constitution? So we'll stop right there, and we'll be back later with Article 6 and 7.